Welcome. Thank you so much for sharing this work with us. Yeah, so let's start on this end. Please introduce yourself, which project you had tonight, and what was your role on the film?
Hi, I'm Leslie Sussman. I was producer on Winter of '79.
Hi, my name is Julia Elihu, and I was the writer-director of Winter of '79.
Hi everyone, I'm Ethan. I did the lyric video. I was the only crew member.
Hi everyone, my name is Ha'aheo, and I directed, shot, and edited Malahini.
All right, we're going to start off on theme here. So, yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about this throughout the festival, but home was a theme that kept coming up for us, and it was definitely in our mind as we put together this particular screening block. So, yeah, that's my first question is for your project, how did home figure into your project? What did that mean for you in the context of your film?
Yeah, I mean, home plays such an important role in this film. I'm Iranian Jewish, so this is a story that hits very close to home for me. My mom's side of the family moved here in 1979 during the revolution, and I mean, this whole story is about not being welcome in your home and having to leave even when you don't want to. And this story was an opportunity for me to actually talk about this with my mom and my grandparents and my uncles and really hear their stories. And that's why I feel like stories like these are so important and need to be told.
Yeah, kind of going off what Leslie said, this was a really interesting documentary to make, just because, you know, always we've kind of heard these stories from our families, but we've never taken the time to sit down with them and kind of ask them more questions about it, because you know, they don't like to talk about those times. They've built a new life for themselves in America, and, you know, they don't like to share their vulnerability. So it was really special to kind of dissect what home meant for them and all of the feelings and emotions that they went through when they had to leave. So, yeah.
The video is obviously inspired by the song, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. Me and Kaylee, the amazing artist in the video, just ran around our house and our neighborhood because it was a couple months after COVID. There's nothing you could really do. And so that felt really intimate, especially about home. And we just wanted to capture that kind of twilight zone melancholy that comes in waves when you're living in Los Angeles. So.
Yeah, Malahini came out of this feeling that I had. I moved to the mainland from Hawaii when I was 3 years old, and so it came from this feeling of loss of a place I felt like I never knew, but I had such feelings of longing for it. And also just like these feelings of not feeling Hawaiian enough because I didn't grow up there. And so for me, it was like, if I felt like this, then I'm sure there's a myriad of ways that my mother felt. And so that's why my mom was the source of what it was.
All three of these projects are gorgeous and distinct in their own way. So super curious to hear from each project how you approached the visuals of your film.
Oh, cool. Well, for me, I filmed this during the height of the pandemic. So there was no access to things. A lot of the rental equipments at my campus at Seattle U was closed. A lot of the places in the city to rent equipment were closed, and I didn't own any equipment at the time. But I knew I really wanted to tell this story. So I used my cell phone. I first did the interview with my mom. I FaceTimed her on my computer, and then I set up voice memos on the speaker next to it, and I just recorded it. And then the week after, I took my phone and I just spent a day with her and I recorded that. So you can literally make anything out of anything.
For this, it was really loose. Kaylee liked it. Well, we were doing a lyric video, and so kind of wanted to do a more, I don't know, subtler version of that versus like having big lyrics on the screen, make it a little more narrative, a little more visual. And she really liked just like the aesthetic of Call Me by Your Name, which was like came out recently, and yeah, so that was kind of the main thing, and we just walked around and kind of just looked at what was going on, and was really quiet, and found the moments, I guess, there, and then pieced together the story and editing. So.
Yeah, so for us, we were lucky enough to work with our cinematographer, Gabe Knus-Newton. Yeah, super talented guy. This was our thesis film at Chapman, and I remember it was so important to us to get like a really, someone with a really good eye who could not only execute kind of like the more like slice of life elements of the film, but also the more like calculated cinematic elements. And that's why we really wanted to work with Gabe, because he had such a great eye for that. So it was really fun just like collaborating with him and sitting and chatting and talking about like how we wanted to film the piece, which shots we wanted to kind of keep steady, which shots we wanted to make a little bit more shaky. And yeah, it was just a really great collaboration with him and a great learning experience too.
That summed it up, yeah.
I'm going to open it up for a few audience questions. If I can see, I see a hand like maybe like 6 rows back here.
Yeah, so the funny story about that last scene with the mountain range. So that we were actually given coordinates at a random location in Palmdale that someone else at Chapman had filmed at for one of their films. So Julia and I just took off one day and we were like, okay, we know we have to go north. So we just kept driving and we were like, ideally we would like a mountain that has snow. And it kind of we just kept driving, and both of us at the same time, we were like, this is it. It was Devil's Punch Bowl in Palmdale. So yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, it was really funny. We just were driving and all we saw was desert. And we're like, where is this snowy mountain? Like, there's no way there's a snowy mountain here. It looks like Joshua Tree. And then both of us literally turned left, and like there it was, the most like beautiful snowy mountain. And by then it was like sunset, so it felt like very magical. And then me and Leslie just kept like driving and driving closer to the mountain until we found like a few locations where we were like, okay, we can probably permit this. Like, we'll figure it out. So that was really hard, but really fun to find. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It was really difficult. Yeah, most of it is based on true stories, and really the way that went about was that I just started calling different family members and family friends and like going to their houses and just sat and like heard their stories from start to finish and just kind of wrote them down as they were speaking. And that was the biggest challenge with this film, was taking all of these like crazy stories that were so big and so elaborate and like trying to make it into a short film. So the moment when the officer like touches her coat, that actually happened to my aunt. The moment when they like reveal the dad in the car, that actually happened to my mom's best friend's dad. They got him out of prison, and the first time her daughter saw him again, she opened the trunk of their car and he was in there. And the moment when they're walking into the mountains in Turkey, that actually happened. They escaped through the snowy mountains of Turkey. So really, like, all of the elements come from real stories and real life, but the actual, like, I guess, combination of all of it is what is fiction.
So our school is located in Orange County, so a lot of times we would come down to LA because there's a lot of Persian actors here, and we would hold casting sessions in LA. And we also had an amazing casting director who helped a lot, and just like word of mouth, like asking people if they know of anyone who would be interested. auditioning. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a lot of like hunting and like finding people through different sources. So if like for the guy who played Haji Ali, like I got a recommendation for another older Persian man. I called him up. He's like, no, I cannot do it. Let me give you this guy's phone number. So then it became like a game of phone tag, literally like calling every like old Persian man in LA. But also to ask you guys too, like, how did you, obviously she's your mom, but like, how did you come across like your artist and how did you connect with them? And then why did you maybe decide to tell this story now?
Girlfriend at the time.
Love it.
You know, you'd be a really good Q&A moderator.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm leaving now. Julia's saying that.
Bye, Dan.
I felt like telling this story was important now because I feel like as a young adult, and maybe not all young adults, but as my individual experience, I felt myself centering my own experience of identity and having to come to the realization that how I exist and who I am is because of the many people that came before me and the many people who had a hand in it, like my mother. And also, it's just such an important story to tell, given the fact that, like, right now, you know, recently this article came out that about the most expensive places to live in the United States, and number one was ranked Hawaii, and how overwhelmingly a lot of Hawaiians are having to leave Hawaii because it's too expensive. And to what end is Hawaii if there's no Hawaiians there? And so this like experience of being away from home and having to be away from my land and my homeland. And that's going to be a very real experience for a lot of young people in the coming years.
Yeah, that's a great question. For Winter of '79, we had a few bumps in the road. The first was we were shooting right in March of 2020. And so literally like the day before our shoot, COVID got named a pandemic. And so we were able to like, we were freaking out. Like I was like, went to our production head's office and I was like, please don't shut us down. Like let us film. So we got to film for 3 days. And then we got shut down for 6 months. And then we picked up the rest of the shoot 6 months later. But for like something that didn't work on set, that confrontation scene between the mother and daughter, what I had originally written like just wasn't working at all. Like it just felt super awkward and forced. So the actors and I just kind of like improv'd as our DP was setting up and came up with like a new idea on the spot of how we wanted to tackle that. And I was, yeah, definitely much, much happier with how that turned out than how I had written it on paper.
Since it was such a like loose thing and it was just me and her, we didn't really have any issues. We just ran around, shot in a few hours, and edited that same day. But yeah, I think it was just kind of nostalgic filming because it reminded me of back in the good old days when it's just like you and the camera and you don't have to worry about anything else, and you can just be creative. So.
I think Malahini fell into place in such a beautiful way. It just happened and it wanted to come to life. And, you know, shout out to my mom for being such a beautiful, like speaking such beautiful words and, you know, being such a help. Like there was times when we were shooting that day where she was like, am I in the right spot? Are you sure you want to put the camera there? She was like super passionate about it. I loved it. I was like, thanks, Mom. I love that you're supporting my career and I love that you're like super into it. I think the hardship came afterwards, after I had made it, and I didn't give it any life. I didn't really believe in it at first. It was just something that I'd made. I was satisfied with it, but I didn't want to show it anywhere. It remained nameless for a really long time. I couldn't figure out what to name it. I couldn't figure out what kind of name it wanted. And then one day, after like 8 months after I had shot it and made it, the name Malahini came. And for those of you who don't know, which is probably most of you, Malahini is a Hawaiian word. It means foreigner. And originally, Haole was the word for foreigner, but it has since become the word for white guys. Love you, Dan. But Malahini is now the word for tourists and foreigners, and so like using that word to play around with my mother's experience of being here in the United States and how to like flip that on its head. So yeah, the difficulty was making it have the life it has now.
All right, I think we have time for one more. Oh, right here in the very front.
I'm sorry. Like, one of the characters, she said that like the family had been there for like 1,500 years, and like also he called them a Zionist. So I was just wondering, because like there's a link between those two claims, like a relationship. I was wondering what you guys were like trying to communicate through certain lines like that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
We just like solved like 5,000 years of human history here. So.
History, yeah. Yeah, so something that happened during the revolution with a lot of Jews, Iranian Jews, was that they were kind of targeted and being told, you don't belong here, you're a Jew, go to Israel, you're a Zionist. So that was a lot of, the persecution that the Jews of Iran faced was, you are not an Iranian. And they kind of weaponized that word, Zionist, to kind of say, it's kind of difficult to explain, but yeah, like, for example, my great uncle, who this film is based on, was accused of being a Zionist spy, but he wasn't a spy, he was just an Iranian Jew. So that word and that idea of being a Jew and never being welcome in the country you consider your home country is kind of where that piece of dialogue came from.
All right, we're gonna have to start to wind this down here, but before we go, time to do the perennial thing and say if you've got anything else that you'd love for the audience to know about. Maybe what's next for this project, if you're still on the festival circuit, or like another project you have coming up that we might see at a future Nifty, or whoever wants to go first.
We just started a festival circuit for a feature that we're doing, and it's been really fun. A lot of, just like, especially Nifty. I mean, honestly, all the festivals I've been to over the years, nothing really compares to Nifty, which is pretty cool. I'm sad I'm getting so old now, but I'll still be here even when I'm old.
Yeah, or maybe, yeah, so the next short that I'm working on, I actually got a grant from Nifty. It's called In the Garden of Tulips, and my good friend Avala Lazarzadeh, who played Layla in Winter of '79, wrote the screenplay, and it is based on her mom's last day in Iran before being smuggled through the border to Pakistan. And it's a slower movie, more similar to Kiarostami, kind of just a slice of life of this moment in time. And we are going to be launching a crowdfunding campaign soon. So if you guys want to support that, that would be really amazing.
My Nifty weekend has been very busy. Along with doing Nifty, I've been doing practice shoots and meetings for my first narrative film that I'm starting to shoot next week. So that's very intimidating. But yes, I'm shooting a narrative film about two friends who reconnect over a camping trip to find the baby teeth that they buried as kids. And I'm going to start crowdfunding for it in a few weeks.
One more round of applause.